I get discouraged for sure, and I will quit fighting at some point. And that point is when the first shovel of dirt hits the top of my box 6 feet down.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to COS Indiana Live. My name is Dale Parrish. I'm the Virtual Program Coordinator for the state of Indiana. That's what VPC stands for. We're big on acronyms here in COS. But anyway, welcome to our show tonight. We've got a great show lined up for you this evening. I think you're really going to enjoy it. We've already encountered some technical difficulties, so when we get to one of the segments, we're going to have to do it via phone, but we're going to get it handled anyway. Tonight, I want to bring on my co-host, and we have a little different individual, not a little different, but we have a different individual tonight. Ken Kashuba, my normal co-host, is not with us tonight, but we have Brandon Garrett. Hi, Brandon.
Hey, Dale. I am definitely not Ken, but it's good to be back.
Brandon's done this before, so we always we like to rely on Brandon when we have to. Brandon's one of our region captains here in Indiana and does a great job for us. And his wife is also one of our leaders, our state events coordinator. So we have a young husband and wife team here in Indiana. So, and I think Brandon, I want to make everyone aware that Brandon will be monitoring our comments and questions tonight. So if you are a viewer, you're welcome to submit a question or a comment, and Brandon will flash them up for us here as they're applicable. So
I certainly will. I know we got a couple different platforms that we're on. So if you're on Facebook, definitely make sure you smash that heart and like button. Tell that algorithm you're enjoying the content so this goes out to more people. And put hashtag live if you're joining us live, no matter what platform you're on. Subscribe, follow if you're on YouTube. All of that good stuff that helps us continue to do the work necessary and get the voice and message out there that, hey, we have a republic to save, guys and gals.
All right. Good deal. Well, folks, as we normally do, we keep count of our broadcast. This is broadcast number 211. And Ken has been with me on 76 of these. So I'm going to count you as Ken tonight, Brandon. So he gets credit for it.
That's all right.
So 76 out of the 211 broadcasts. Well, I want to let everybody know what we have in store for you all tonight. And let me get this, I'll get this screen up here so you can see it. First up on tonight, we're going to have our first guest will be Karen Shuster. Karen is the state director for the state of Iowa. Karen's going to give us a little rundown on what's happening in Iowa. You've all heard of the Iowa State Fair and all that sort of stuff. So Karen is going to come on. Iowa is now part of, I should say Indiana is now part of the region of which Iowa is one of the states that comprises the region. So we're going to try and bring on more and more people from other states whenever possible. So Karen has graciously agreed to meet with us tonight, give us a little rundown on what's happening in Iowa. So Karen will be up first. Then we're going to talk to our state prayer coordinator, Tim Heidenreich. And Tim officially is an SIA here in Indiana, but we're going to focus tonight on his duties as the state prayer coordinator. I think you're going to find that very interesting. And hopefully we can get the technical issues worked out here and bring on Mike Gibson, one of our newest district captains in House District 81. That's the one we're having a little technical difficulty with. We're going to have to do it by phone, but we want to get Mike on. And in the mix here, Ken Kashuba has recorded a little segment for us, and he's going to get on his soapbox tonight. This is 9/11, okay, as we all know. And Ken has recorded a segment called If I Were the Devil. Now, if you're as old as I am, you'll recognize what that means. And who said that? If I were the devil.
Oh, you're not that old, Dale, because that makes me old, because I know that. That's Paul Harvey. Come on now.
That's right. That's right. And Ken, I think has done a great job with this, and it's really, really. I just listened to this. I just saw his recording here this last week, and my. If I'm correct here, I'm going to bring Brandon back up. Brandon, I think this was recorded in 1962. I think. So it's just it's scary, really. But anyway,
Yeah.
That's what Ken's going to talk to us about tonight. So it's a pre-recorded segment, so we'll bring that on at the time. Well, what I want to do now is I want to go to our first guest this evening. And as I mentioned, it's Karen Shuster from State Director in Iowa. And let me bring Karen on here.
Yeah, get her in here. We're going
There
national now.
Hello, Karen.
Hello.
Hello.
Thanks for having me on.
Karen.
Hi.
Nice to meet you, Karen, and welcome to COS Indiana Live. So we're very, very happy to have you here tonight. And as I mentioned, Karen is the state director for the state of Iowa. She also serves as an associate regional director, kind of an assistant regional director. But we're gonna focus pretty much on her role as a state director in Iowa. So Karen, I always ask all the leaders that I have on here on COS Indiana Live, regardless of where they're from, to tell us your COS story. So tell us about the how, when, where you got involved in Convention of States.
Okay. Well, my COS story began because I've homeschooled my children for over 20 years. That's long enough that I remember when Michael Ferris was the president of the Homeschool Legal Defense Association. We're members of HSLDA, and to teach government, I used their Constitutional Literacy DVD course, which features Michael Ferris. I was using the first edition, but when they came out with the second edition, I began using that instead. The biggest difference that I noticed was the last episode of the series, Lecture 25, Reclaiming Our Country. The first edition of that episode essentially talked about the importance of voting and being politically active. But the second edition, it included that, and it said that that wasn't going to be enough to just elect good people. Washington, D.C. is broken, and we need an Article 5 Convention of States. So I went to the website and I signed the petition. By the way, if you want to watch that episode, it is the GOV 100 Constitutional Literacy course at cosuniversity.com. Module 2 contains 2 episodes from the DVD course, one of which is the Reclaiming Our Country module. Module 3 has a link to the HSLDA store where you can purchase the DVDs. Plus, it has something that I didn't have when I bought mine, a 50% off coupon.
Oh, is that right?
Well, we got to get it now because there's a coupon involved.
Yeah. So you've spent 20 years homeschooling your children, right? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Wow.
20 plus. Yeah.
That's amazing. So, all right. Well, Karen, give us a little idea, some of the basic information about the state of Iowa.
Okay, well, Iowa is a little state. It's a little sibling in the region. Even though it has 100 House districts and 50 Senate districts, we're a small state population-wise. We have about 52,000 petitioners, and we have 16 leaders that have a role.
Okay. All right. Good. 100 House districts and 50 senatorial. That's what Indiana has too.
Yeah,
So
say we're set up that way. And you said you had how many petition signers?
52,000.
That's not
52,000.
bad. What's that as a percentage of the population? Do you know?
Well, we have not quite 3.1 million people.
Okay,
That's
So yeah.
about right. That's about right. Yeah.
that's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. Okay. Well, tell us. I know you wanted to get into some in talking about the Iowa. You wanted to kind of touch on the legislative side of it a bit. So. So how are you? Do you have a number of legislators on board with you, or how is that set up in Iowa?
Well, just a little background on that our legislature, how it works. We're in session from January to April, and we have a 2-year session. So everything starts at the beginning of year 1, but any progress we make in year 2 carries over. Any progress we make in year 1 carries over to year 2. So 2023 was a year 1. 2024 will be a year 2. So we've not lost the progress that we made this year. So for a resolution to pass in Iowa, it must first get through a subcommittee made of 3 legislators. And I think Iowa is unique in that the subcommittee is the only time that the public can testify. So after the subcommittee, then the resolution passes a full committee. This is the point that we ended this year at. We passed the full committee in both chambers. So when we begin 2024, we will pick up where we left off. And the next step is to pass the full chamber in both the House and Senate. So with our Senate, as I mentioned before, we have 50 members, 34 are Republican. And the House has 100 members and 64 are Republican. And we have strong support from leadership in both chambers. So the question is, why didn't we pass the resolution this year?
That's right. You're not a past state.
We have a problem. We have a Birch problem. So probably a dozen or so of the representatives or members of or are closely aligned with the John Birch Society. Yes. Incidentally, JBS is headquartered in Wisconsin, and until as late as 2018, it was registered in Wisconsin as a professional fundraiser. Even though it's no longer registered as a fundraiser, its affiliates still pay JBS hundreds of thousands of dollars for professional fundraisings. All this information is available on tax return documents that you can find on the IRS website. But back to Iowa, there are enough non-Birch legislators that we believe we can get on board and get our resolution passed. There's some tough ones for us to convince for various reasons, but we have some very heavy hitters on our side. Namely Senator Rick Santorum and Mike Ferris. So please keep us in your prayers. We hope we can become a past state next year.
Good. Yeah. I like that concept of the 2-year concept. So the second year is a carryover of what was done in the first year. I like that. That's interesting. I didn't know that. That's very interesting. Okay. Well, we all know and have heard about the Iowa State Fair. So tell us about the Iowa State Fair. I know you've had a presence there. Had a presence there again this year. It's I'll let you tell everybody about it, right? I think you just ended not too long ago, right?
Just ended August 20th. So, the Iowa State Fair, it's been made famous by being the subject of a book and subsequently a couple of movies. It has over 1 million visitors a year. So, as I mentioned before, the entire state of Iowa's population is not quite 3.2 million. So you can see why the Iowa State Fair is a big deal to us. Our team's had a booth at the fair for the past 3 years. Which means we're seeing more people who've already signed each year. The number of petitions has gone down. Nevertheless, the numbers are still fantastic. Our first year, we knocked it out of the park and set a Convention of States event record with over 6,300 petitions.
And that remains a record in COS, doesn't it?
It does. I would love for someone to beat it because, I mean, that's good for all of us. Our second year, the high bar
I'll tell you, Karen, we had a district captain do a gun show about somewhere in that same period, and he got 600 petitions signed, and we just thought that was great. and then all of a sudden we hear this number come out of Iowa, 6,500. Holy smokes.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm sure that was a little deflating, but 600 is still good for a gun show. That's great for a gun show.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it was.
Well, we haven't even been able to beat that either. Our second year, we reached nearly 4,000 petitions, and this year we had only about 2,700 signed. That totals to almost 13,000 petitions for all 3 years. That actually represents over 20% of all the petitions that Iowa has collected over the past 10 years have come from those last 3 years at the state fair.
Wow.
Not only that, but we have collected petitions at the Iowa State Fair from every state in the union except one. I'll give you a hint. It's the same state that didn't send any commissioners to the COS simulation this year.
Do you know who that would be, Brandon?
Well, I'm biased to one particular state anyway, because it just lends itself to being the punchline of any political joke lately. But I don't want to spoil the surprise. It is Karen's show, so lay it out there for us, Karen.
I'm sure there's people at home watching saying it's Rhode Island, and yes, it's Rhode Island.
Rhode Island.
I think there's people that live there. I don't know. Never seen them at the fair.
All right. Well, I know, Karen, you were telling me about your experience at the fair and being able to talk to a lot of people while you're there, and you mentioned that you began to see a message. You began to hear a message amongst the people that you talked to. Tell us about this message that you picked up on.
Okay.
We'll kind of wrap it up on this part here.
Okay. Well, anything that would come out of an Article 5 convention will ultimately have to be ratified by 38 states, as you know. Since we don't have 38 red states and we don't have 38 blue states, our resolution and any proposed amendments that might come from it need to appeal to both parties. And even when you live in a red state, you're going to encounter many Democrats. They'll come to your booth and they'll say, I like term limits, but I don't like the other two parts of your resolution. But each one of our topics has something to offer that everyone would like. Of course, number one, term limits. As you know, term limits is supported by 80% of the people, so that's an easy one. Number two, fiscal restraints. You'll find support from both parties when you tell them that with fiscal restraints, we can put limits on the retirement packages of Congress, and we can make them live by the same rules we live by. The third one, limits on federal power. 41 states have a single subject rule in their state constitution. That means that any bill that goes before their legislative body has to pertain to one topic only. If we could have a single subject rule for Congress, we could get rid of all that pork and blow those omnibus bills into hundreds of pieces. Both parties love that idea. So we can have hope that our resolution can and will bring about some big positive changes for our country.
Very good, very good, and that's important. That more people, different viewpoints, find that commonality in what we're trying to accomplish here. So I think that's an excellent insight that you've gained there. So, Karen, we're out of time here. I want to wrap it up on that note, and I want to thank you for taking the time to join us this evening.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
I've convinced Karen to participate in our possible roundtable coming up. So,
there we go. That's gonna be fun.
Yeah, I didn't mention
it's a little rowdy on the roundtable, Karen. Not gonna lie.
Okay, I've been warned.
Karen, it's been a pleasure having you this evening. So thank you very much. Have a good evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, Brandon, I enjoyed Karen, and that was very good. Very good.
Yeah. a lot of good insights of what's going on. It's just crazy still to this day to me to think that the Iowa State Fair has millions of attendees every year. It's just absolutely crazy. Had some good conversations going on in the chat. We got some of our normal viewers on today. I see David. I see our state director Dale Tipton tuning in. Jerry, got my alarms going off in the background. Got a new viewer, Carlos. I know Carlos from back in the day, so good to see you there, Carlos. Okay. David did make a comment. I just want to point out he's talking about trying to get a booth for either the Patriot Academy or COS at Riley Days there in Greenfield. David, if you're still watching the broadcast, I know that came in on YouTube. Reach out on Facebook to my wife, Stacy. She's the state events coordinator. I know Riley Days is coming up here about 3 or 4 weeks, so it was pretty short turnaround, but reach out to her. We can see what we can do, try to get you some help.
Okay. All right. Good deal. Okay. Well, I want to go right now. I want to go to Ken Kashuba's recording on the Soapbox segment that he wants to do. So let's
the actual Ken Kashuba, not the stand-in.
Pardon me.
The actual Ken Kashuba, not
the actual Ken Kashuba. That's right.
Not the younger, more handsome one.
And once again, this is If I Were the Devil. So let's go here.
If I were the devil. If I were the devil. If I were the prince of darkness, I'd want to engulf the whole world in darkness, and I'd have 1/3 of its real estate and 4/5 of its population, but I wouldn't be happy until I had seized the ripest apple on the tree. So I'd set about, however necessary, to take over the United States. I'd subvert the churches first. I'd begin with a campaign of whispers. With the wisdom of a serpent, I would whisper to you as I whispered to Eve, do as you please. To the young, I would whisper that the Bible is a myth. I would convince them that man created God instead of the other way around. I would confide that what's bad is good and what's good is square. And the old I would teach to pray after me, Our Father, which art in Washington. And then I'd get organized. I'd educate authors in how to make lurid literature exciting so that anything else would appear dull and uninteresting. I'd threaten TV with dirtier movies and vice versa. I'd peddle narcotics to whom I could. I'd sell alcohol to ladies and gentlemen of distinction. I'd tranquilize the rest with pills. If I were the devil, I'd soon have families at war with themselves, churches at war with themselves, and nations at war with themselves, until each in its turn was consumed. And with promises of higher ratings, I'd have mesmerizing media fanning the flames. If I were the devil, I would encourage schools to refine young intellects, but neglect to discipline emotions, just let those run wild. Until before you knew it, you'd have to have drug-sniffing dogs and metal detectors at every schoolhouse door. Within a decade, I'd have prisons overflowing. I'd have judges promoting pornography. Soon I could evict God from the courthouse, then from the schoolhouse, and then from the houses of Congress. And in his own churches, I would substitute psychology for religion and deify science. I would lure priests and pastors into misusing boys and girls and church money. If I were the devil, I'd make the symbol of Easter an egg and the symbol of Christmas a bottle. If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who wanted until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious. And what'll you bet? I couldn't get whole states to promote gambling as the way to get rich. I would caution against extremes in hard work, in patriotism, in moral conduct. I would convince the young that marriage is old-fashioned, that swinging is more fun, that what you see on TV is the way to be. And thus I could undress you in public, and I could lure you into bed with diseases for which there is no cure. In other words, if I were the devil, I'd just keep right on doing what he's doing.
That was Paul Harvey some 60 years ago. What did he see then that people living smack dab in the middle have not a clue? In Engel versus Vitale, 1962, the Supreme Court ruled that school-sponsored prayer in public schools violated the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. Did Mr. Harvey have a crystal ball? No. I believe he tapped into the moral fabric of how America was formed. I believe he knew what would keep evil from creeping into the souls of man. His form of journalism was informative and wrapped around truth. Today is September 11th, and the phrase, never forget, is engraved in the hearts of many Americans who can still tell you exactly where they were on that fateful morning. Evil showed its ugly head across the screens of televisions all across America that day. And yet today we have a generation who cannot feel what most of us felt that day. To experience evil up close. Yet, even after that experience, the subtle work of evil has worked its way into our present-day existence, taking moral standards in its grip. We have a stand to take and must do everything we can to make change, to defend our way of life. Convention of States has a role in it, but it needs to start in the hearts and souls of everyday Americans. And that is the rest of the story.
Good stuff from Ken.
Was that good or what? Huh?
Wow.
I'll tell you. Yeah, now he's going to gloat over this, but he hit a home run there. I think I have to admit.
Yeah, we'll let him this one time.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on. Let's bring on Tim Heidenreich. And hello, Tim.
Hello, fellas.
Tim.
Hi.
Good evening.
Glad to have you tonight, Tim. Tim, I know I mentioned in the introduction that officially you're an SIA, Systems Information Analyst for Convention of States, but you also lead our state prayer group. You're the prayer group coordinator. So I wanted to bring you on, and I wanted to feature this program that you coordinate because I think it's very important. And I think a lot of people in our state participate in this, and perhaps we need more. But I wanted to give you a chance to talk about the program. But first of all, as we do with all of our leadership individuals, give us a sense here of your COS story, how, when, where you got involved in Convention of States.
Well, I actually got started in the Tea Party, as so many of us did.
Okay.
And I was in that for a couple of years here in Indiana, and it kind of petered out. And then in 2016, I saw that this Convention of States, and I said, I need to get into that because I don't think the Tea Party is really going to get where we need to go. And so I've been working with the Convention of States since 2016. I was a district captain for a while. And then I saw the need for SIAs. I think Jerry Rowe was the only one we had at that time. Now we've got 3 or 4. And so I went into that. And then a few years ago, you said to me when you were the state leader, you said, how would you like to be the prayer coordinator? Because you knew that I worked in prison ministry. And I said, yeah, that sounds good to me. So that's how I transitioned over into this. And I've been doing it for, I don't know, maybe 2 years now or 3 years.
Yeah, I think it's been at least 3 years. I think maybe maybe longer. But yeah, we were talking about this. You mentioned being in the prison ministry program, and what's the status of that program? Very quickly, I think it's an important program for everyone to be aware of.
Well, the program is called Kairos, Kairos. It's a term that means God's special time, and it's a worldwide ministry that goes into prisons all over the world. Our particular one that I was in is in Pendleton, Indiana. There's a maximum security prison there, and it has 2,500 or 2,800 prisoners in there. And so it goes, well, before COVID, we used to go in there on Wednesday nights, which conflicted with our Wednesday night meetings here. And that's how you found out, because I was always calling in late from the road because I was coming back from prison when the meeting was going on.
Yeah.
But anyway, so it's been closed down for a couple of years because the prison system hadn't wanted visitors to come into the prisons because they might bring COVID in with them and get all the prisoners sick.
Right.
So they just didn't let ministries in or anybody else that comes in. They just locked it down. So we think they're going to be opening it up to us later this year, and there may be a team going back in there. But right now, it's still closed.
All right, good. Well, let's hope it gets reopened again. Well, tell us, Tim. I know we talked about tell us how important prayer has been in the founding of our country.
Well, if we look back to what they were doing when they were writing the founding documents, they were always talking about praying to God, and they were always talking about the importance of the Creator, and that this country was going to be a special country for the world, and that we're going to have freedom of religion and freedom of speech. People could have whatever God they wanted, but of course Christianity was the one most of them wanted. And I think if our founding fathers came back today and saw what we've been doing, just like in that Paul Harvey piece, they'd be amazed that our country's still in one piece, since we don't do that. Besides the founding documents, I think back to George Washington, who proclaimed the first Thanksgiving on October the 3rd, 1789. That's 250 years ago about, and we've been celebrating that ever since, thanking God for this country. And I just feel that's integral to the Convention of States. All these things that we want, we need to pray for them and ask God to help us get them, because we sure have made a mess out of it up to now. And it just seemed like a big snowball rolling us farther and farther away from God in our whole culture.
Yeah. So there's a lot of value in prayer, right? I mean, it's and I think another thing that I know you like to touch on was the need for wisdom, and how. Tell us how through prayer, how does that tie into wisdom then?
Well, the Bible says, if any of you lacks wisdom, ask God for it, and He will give it abundantly. That's something that I have prayed for years. It's a big part of my prayer. I don't only pray for me to have wisdom. I pray for other people to have wisdom. And one of the things I've put in our state newsletter is people should pray for the state director and for all the leadership of Convention of States, the national too, so that those leaders know what to do. Because, you know, Dale, for the years that you were the state director, you didn't know what to do every day. Somehow you had to get nudged to knowing the right thing. So I think praying for wisdom is extremely important. And I always ask people to do that. God will give it abundantly if we just ask for it. And I don't know if you know who Tony Evans is. He's a famous pastor, and he has a radio show on every day at 11 o'clock, or I guess it's 11:30 in the morning. And he did a show about this the other day, and he said, when you think about prayer, when you think about the fact that God gave us free will. So God won't interfere with our lives unless we give Him permission to. He's just going to let us do what we want to. But when we ask God in prayer, we're actually giving Him permission to interfere in our lives and do the thing that we're asking for. So if we don't pray, our free will takes precedence. And if we do pray, God's will takes precedence. And I just think that's a very powerful message about prayer. And I was glad I heard that on Tony's show the other day.
Sure is. That's great. That's great.
Tell us. It's very interesting too, Dale, that Tim brings up George Washington.
Okay.
A little bit of a history nerd. If you study George Washington historically at all, although he was very private about his personal religious beliefs, GW was notoriously public about his prayer, always praying with the soldiers, always calling for days of prayers, things like that. I mean, you have one of the most probably influential founders, probably next to Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin, who really exemplified and leaned on the importance and power of prayer to accomplish great work. So it's very interesting, Tim, you bring that up and bring up George, because not many people realize that about George Washington.
Yeah. Very good.
Also other great leaders. Eisenhower was a great prayer, and so was Bradley, Omar Bradley. We've just had a lot of leaders over the years that probably kept that private that we don't know about unless we read an autobiography of them. But where do you think they get the power to do the amazing things that they do in leadership? They pray for that wisdom and they get it.
I mean, can you imagine the amount of prayer that took place during World War II? I mean, there had to have been a lot of prayer happening.
One of the things about prayer that's important to remember is it should never be the last thing we do. It should be the first thing. But how often do you hear people say, well, I've done everything else. I guess now I'll just have to pray. They've done it in the wrong order. I can tell you, when you face something that's just totally beyond your control, the death of a family member, your dad goes into hospice, your child has cancer, you have a bad car accident. I can tell you the first time I got shot at in Vietnam, the first thing that happened in my mind was, God, please don't let me die in this place. When you have a crisis in your life, that's the best thing you can do is just turn to God and pray. And if you make it a practice, through your life, not just a one-time event, whenever you're in trouble, it'll just be a lot more helpful to you than just once in a while.
So I think, Tim, what you're saying is anyone can pray. Am I right? Anyone can pray.
Yes, and we have a prayer line. People write to me on email or on Slack, and they'll say, for instance, my son-in-law is going through a divorce. Could you guys get the guys on the COS prayer team to pray that this comes out all right? Or, something bad's happening in my family, or so-and-so is sick, so-and-so was just diagnosed. And we have 15 or 20 people on that line. But I'd be glad to have anybody else come on and join us on that line. You don't even have to be a COS member. Anybody that just believes in prayer and would like to join us in praying for other people, you can contact me. And my email address is tim.heidenreich@cosaction.com. There's a lot of ways to find me.
We're going to be giving everyone an email address that you can send to this broadcast. So feel free to send us an email to the broadcast, and we'll get that to Tim. We'll get that forwarded to you. So
even if you don't use Slack, whatever happens, when I get a prayer request, I send it out on the Slack prayer channel. It's called Indiana COS Prayer Warriors, or COS Indiana Prayer Warriors. And I also send it out in email to the whole distribution list. So it goes out two ways. You don't have to use Slack, or if you're not good at email, you don't have to use email.
Okay. All right. Good. Tim, thank you very much. Thank you for doing what you're doing and leading the prayer group. I think it's been a very, very important part of our effort here in the state of Indiana. And I just want to once again take this opportunity to thank you for leading that group, and keep up the good work. Keep up the good work.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me here tonight.
Right.
Good to see you, Tim.
Thank you,
See
Tim.
you, Brandon.
All right, Brandon, we're going to try and get Mike Gibson on here as our last guest, and we may have to do this by phone. I'm going to bring him up here and see. Mike, is your volume working any better? Well, I'm still on the phone.
We're gonna have to do it the MacGyver way.
Okay. All right. See if you can say something, Mike.
Good evening.
Hey, there we go.
Oh, is everybody hearing that all right?
Yep, it's coming through loud and clear, Dale. I think we're good.
Okay. All right. Good. Let me get you lined up here. Okay. All right. We got Mike Gibson with us tonight, folks. Mike is a district captain for House District 81. And Mike, before we get any further, you want to tell everybody where is your district located in the state? Give everybody an idea.
House District 81 is in northwestern Allen County. Allen County is in northeastern Indiana. The biggest city in Allen County is Fort Wayne, and this district is north and west of Fort Wayne.
Okay.
two towns that are in District 81 are Huntertown, where I live, and Arcola.
Okay. Okay.
He's up there by you, Dale.
He is. He's very, very close to me. I live in Fort Wayne. And so, as a matter of fact, I think our his state senator is my state senator, I believe. I think we share a senator there. But anyway, okay, Mike, as I've asked all other leadership individuals coming on COS Indiana Live, tell us your COS story.
I've been a conservative all my life and have grown increasingly disappointed with our leadership on the conservative side. Seems like we elect people and things don't change. The same things keep happening and the same people are there. It seems like they do the same things, and there's nothing in place to really limit what they do or direct them to change their behavior. And when I learned about convention of states on talk radio, primarily through Mark Levin and Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity, this was a way to change the behavior in Washington. It would direct, at least by a constitutional amendment, that they must balance the budget for one thing. And the other thing is that if we had term limits, some of the same old people doing the same old things would be gone. And I think that would be refreshing.
Now, who could you possibly be talking about there? We won't get into that. We won't get into that. Yes.
No,
that list is long and
distinguished,
Dale.
Obviously, it's developed something just short of outrageous. But
right.
But at any rate, I signed a petition 4 years ago. Last winter, I decided to get active and started attending district meetings. And the more I learned, the more I felt attracted to become more involved, and went through the training, and in July this year became district captain for House District 81. So that's how I got to be where I am today.
All right. Good for you. Tell us about your legislators, Mike. As you know, one of the most important responsibilities of a district captain is establishing that relationship with your state senator, your state representatives. Who do you have in your district?
For House District 81, we have Martin Carball, and our Senate district, our representative is Elizabeth Brown. And fortunately for me, on Surge Day in March, when we attended the state capitol, I was able to meet with both of them.
Yeah.
And not just for a few minutes. They were very gracious, particularly Liz gave us the time we wanted. She answered all our questions at our booth that was there.
Yes.
And we had an appointment with Martin Carball in the afternoon in his office. And he answered in his office. There were 6 of us that went up there. And he answered questions for over an hour. And I found him to be, actually both he and Liz to be very strong supporters for Convention of States. And they did ask, was there anything they could do to help us? And I thought that was very good of them to ask what they might do.
Liz Brown has been a longtime supporter of Convention of States. As a matter of fact, she was the first politician that I ever spoke to in my life when I first joined Convention of States. She was the first one that I spoke to and met with. So kind of go back a ways with her. So, and you're right, on that Surge Day when we were down there, she came down to the booth and talked to us, and again was very supportive. So very good. Well, Mike, tell us then some of your objectives that you have set for yourself that you want to accomplish in your district?
Well, personally, I want to keep track of what's going on at my local town council and also with our school board. I think these are things that, as an individual citizen, I need to stay on top of. But also, I can share what's going on because they are in District 81. So any of the people that we talk to, if they have questions, I feel like I can be informed about what's going on those two particular areas. My other objectives are I want to hold monthly district meetings. I've already hosted one, and I'm looking forward to doing some more. To gain signatures on petitions, I've done some block walking, and there are more events that are scheduled next month. And I also like to go to the local events. We participated at the Graybull Country Fair this last weekend.
How did that go?
We had 7 different volunteers, and we got over 120 signatures over 3 days.
That's good. Good.
And it was interesting to listen to the people who approached us at the table. Obviously, some are already supporters. Some were supporters but had never heard of Convention of States and readily signed the petition. And then we talked to a number of other people, though, who were reluctant to sign the petition that day. But they took the literature and they understood what we're trying to do. And many of them commended us and expressed their appreciation for us being out there and spreading the word.
That's good. Now, I know, Mike, tell us a bit about your experience in block walking. This is a kind of a new event that has come about in Convention of States over the past year. And you have a regional events coordinator, Lisa Phillips, that has really taken the lead in our state on promoting and conducting block walking. And I know you've participated in the block walking events. Tell us about your experience in that event, in that type of event.
Lisa and Paul met Diane and I at a neighborhood. And the way this works, the process is real straightforward. You get a clipboard. It's got petitions on it for people to sign. You have literature that you hand out, and you have a script or a message. And the message is real simple. It talks about term limits. It talks about a balanced budget. It talks about government overreach. And it's easy to knock on the door and ask these questions of people and get their reaction. And obviously it happens pretty quickly. You can tell which people are ready to sign the petition, people who need to know more before they'll sign. And then some people will take the literature and say they'll consider it, and other people are outright will reject you. But that particular day, I think we called on 40 different homes. And if I'm not mistaken, we got 24 signatures.
Really?
That's awesome.
And
That's
Diane
fantastic.
and I went out as a pair. Diane Jones is another district captain, and it's easy to do. If you're talking to people, and typically Diane would lead the conversation, and then they'd look at me, and it was easy for me to sort of take their cue, and then and it's not that difficult to do. I mean, I think we have a message that most people are interested in. I think we learned that a lot of people are not happy with the way things are going in government, and I think they're looking for a way to make changes. But I think I was very impressed with our success that day, and I think that this is a good method for us. We've talked about at our region meetings that we think we've saturated the gun show market, and we need to find another way to go. And we're going to try block walking. I think that's the consensus of our group, that we're going to do block walking and continue to do the fairs and the local events.
Right. Tell me, Mike, the people that rejected your presence, did they tell you why they were rejecting you? Did they give you any information along that line?
Some of them just weren't interested at all.
Yeah.
And the argument that we got is that this doesn't have a chance.
Heard that one before. Yeah.
And when my response to that was, well, out of the state of Indiana, we have nearly the population that has signed already. And we know that if we get 3% or more on a national level, that speaks volumes. And if we could get to that, I think that, I mean, come on, we already know there's 250 organizations that are against us,
right,
are against Convention of States altogether.
Right.
And I think that we just need to go out there and share the message and be able to reply to these people that they need to listen, because otherwise things are not going to change. They're only going to get worse.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good.
But, yep.
Very, very good. Well, let's wrap it up. Mike, tell us, I like to ask our leaders, especially our district captains, to touch on self-governance. I know you're involved in some other things. You mentioned a few of them here, I think, already tonight. But tell me some of the other things that you're involved in other than Convention of States, but still related to local government, your community, neighborhood. What are some of the other activities and organizations you're part of?
Beyond the town council, I know a number of people there. My wife and I attend church. It's interesting that when you're talking to people that are church members, how the conversation turns to what's going on from a political standpoint. And but at least from a self-governance standpoint, my message to people is that we have to start. It's with you and me. It's grassroots, and whether it's town council meeting or people at school board, or when we attend sporting events at the schools where grandchildren go and our children teach, there's a way to get the message out about that it's up to us. It's if not us, then who? And we need to let people know that it's up to us to make this change. And I think that these are the ways that I find that I'm able to get that message out.
All right. Excellent. Very good, Mike. Hey, thank you very much for coming on tonight. And glad to have you as a district captain. I know you're going to do a good job. I knew you would when I first met you. I knew you were going to be a good leader in our effort here in Indiana. So very, very happy that you've stepped forward to accept the role as district captain. So, Mike, we made it. We made it all right using a telephone here. Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, thanks, Dale.
Thank you, Mike. Have a good evening.
All right, you too.
Well, Brandon,
got it in, got it done.
That's the first interview I've ever done using a telephone like that.
Adapt and overcome, right? That's what it's all about.
Worked very well. Well, listen,
I am shocked that they had that much success with the block walking. Like that is phenomenal. Like coming from a sales background, like I spent the last 4 or 5 years like building a sales as a service company, and like in the door-to-door sales industry, like having that many, being able to have that many conversations, let alone what would be considered a conversion or a sale to like sign the petition. Like he's over 50%. Like that's phenomenal. I think we all need to get together with Mike and be like, what were you guys doing? Because that is fantastic. We definitely need to learn from that and roll that out more.
Well, let's start wrapping things up here, Brandon. I wanted to give everyone this email address that I mentioned earlier, raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. Now that's our email address for COS Indiana Live. So if you have any comment or question about what was said tonight, or you want to relay a message to any of our guests from this evening, drop us an email at raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. Ken Kashuba and I monitor these emails every day, so we will respond to your request. I just want to mention here that our next broadcast is going to be 1 week from tonight, going to be on September 18th, and we're putting together a very special broadcast for that evening. We're going to dedicate the entire broadcast to a review of the simulation that the COS Foundation sponsored early in August. And folks, this was a simulation. This was a simulating of an actual convention of states. We've only done this twice. And I think the last one was something like 2016, I believe it was.
Yeah, it's been several years.
Well, we've done another one. It came off on early August. We had 2 commissioners attend from the state of Indiana. I think all 50 states, I believe, were represented at the simulation, and we're going to have both of those commissioners on with us that evening. Christy Stutzman and David Jones will be on with us, as well as Paul Phillips, one of our legislative individuals here in COS, who attended the simulation. We'll get his input on it. So we're going to dedicate the whole broadcast to a review of what happened, and we're going to get then the reaction from Christy and David as to what their experience was while at the simulation. And we'll get Paul Phillips will give us his insights as well. So that's what's coming up on the next broadcast on September 18th. Now, our next roundtable, I should say, which we dedicate on the 4th Monday of every month. We change the format of our broadcast and we do a panel discussion on a particular topic. And Brandon, we're getting bold here, I'll tell you.
I like it.
The topic for October 23rd. Wait a minute. No, I've got the wrong. I've jumped ahead of it. The next roundtable is September 25th. I put the wrong date there.
That's all right.
September 25th is our next roundtable, and the topic is the dangers of socialism. So, like I said, Brandon, we're getting bolder and bolder.
Yeah, we're gonna tiptoe up to that bandhammer line, aren't we? I like it.
Yes, we are. So
bring it on.
sorry for the date error there. However, October 23rd is the roundtable date for October, but we don't have a topic selected for it yet. So next roundtable is September 25th, the dangers of socialism. So, okay. Also want to mention we do a podcast where we haven't done an episode here lately. We're got to get back on track here. COS Indiana Live Voices is what our podcast is called. Can be found on Spotify.com. Spotify.com. So, folks, I think that's going to be a wrap for this evening. And Brandon, I want to thank you for helping out this evening. Appreciate you stepping up here at the last minute. And I know we didn't.
It's my pleasure. If you guys are willing to risk bringing me on, I figure I might as well take the opportunity because you never know what you're going to get.
Oh, we took a chance. We lucked out. We lucked out. So, Brandon, thanks again. And everyone, I want to say good night to everyone. We're going to sign off now. We got a closing video here from Mark Meckler, and that will be our closing. And once the video is completed, then the broadcast will be ended. So thanks, everyone, for tuning in tonight. Look for us next Monday evening, 7 o'clock Eastern. And once again, we're going to dedicate the whole broadcast to a review of the simulation. So
it'd be so good. You guys ain't gonna want to miss it. It's like the political Super Bowl, no joke. Like people coming from all over the United States. Don't miss it, guys.
See y'all. Good night.
I struggle to empathize with people who would give up. It doesn't make sense to me. Sam Adams said, for those of you who prefer safety and security over liberty, over the animating fight for liberty, I hope that you enjoy licking the hands that feed you. May your chains rest lightly upon you, and may posterity forget that you are our countrymen. Like, do you understand that your kids and you are sentencing your kids and your grandkids and your friends' kids and your neighbors' kids to a lifetime of slavery and servitude, literally, of fear, of living in the darkness, but never, ever, never, never, never give up. George Washington lost the majority of his battles that he fought in the American Revolution. If you read his writings, if you read the letters where he was writing to Congress asking for money and troops, he was saying, we're losing. I don't have the troops I need. I don't have the supplies I need. Did he quit? What about the guys on the beach at Normandy? Like, what did they do? Did they just quit? Oh, there's, a lot of guys are dying around me. It's really bad. It looks really dismal. Those cliffs are huge. Machine gun fire raining down on us. And it's too hard. We should just quit. Thank God those people didn't quit. If they had, where would we be? I get discouraged, for sure. And I will quit fighting at some point. And that point is when the first shovel of dirt hits the top of my box 6 feet down.